All right, welcome back, guys, to this session. We're gonna finalize the chapter. All right, so we know that when Bruno saw this camp and the reality of the other side of the fence and how he realized that it's totally different than what he had thought and what he had expected. I like it here. Okay, so when he saw the reality of the camp, and he saw how things were really not that great as he thinks they are, he realized that this is not really the place where I want to be. And he tells Shmuel, I think I ought to go home. The question says here, why doesn't Bruno leave when he sees what the camp really is like? Okay, so he tells Bruno, okay, when Bruno discovers the reality of the camp, he tells Bruno, he tells Shmuel, rather, that he should go home. Ought means he should go home, that he ought to go home. What stops him? The question tells you here, why doesn't he actually go? What stops him? What makes him stop? Fadia?
That he's searching for that he's helping Shmuel to search for his father.
Good. Bravo. Okay. Because he is reminded that this is his last time to see Shmuel. This is the last time that they're gonna be together. Okay. So here, we need to know that Bruno is reminded that this is his last time to see Shmuel.
And also, he didn't.
Yes. Go ahead, Judy.
He also promised him he will search for his father. So
Yes. Good job of helping him find his father. Good job, Judy. Okay. So he doesn't want to, um, disappoint Shmuel. All
Break his
right. Say that again.
I mean, like to break his promise. He didn't want to break his
Exactly.
promise.
He didn't want to break his promise. Good. All right. So he tells him, where should we start looking? You said we'd need to find evidence, said Shmuel, who was feeling upset because he thought that if Bruno didn't help him, then who would? Evidence. Yes, said Bruno, nodding his head. You're right. Let's start looking. So Bruno kept his word, and the two boys spent an hour and a half searching the camp looking for evidence. They weren't sure exactly what they were looking for, but Bruno kept stating that a good explorer would know it when he found it. But they didn't find anything at all that might give them a clue to Shmuel's papa's disappearance, and it started to get darker. Bruno looked up at the sky, and it looked like it might rain again. I'm sorry, Shmuel, he said eventually. I'm sorry we didn't find any evidence. Shmuel nodded his head sadly. He wasn't really surprised. He hadn't really expected to. But it had been nice having his friend over to see where he lived all the same. I thought I ought to go home now, said Bruno. Will you walk back to the fence with me? Shmuel opened his mouth to answer, but right at that moment there was a loud whistle, and 10 soldiers, more than Bruno had ever seen, gathered together in one place before a surrounded area on the camp, the area in which Bruno and Shmuel were standing. What's happening? Whispered Bruno. What's going on? It happens sometimes, said Shmuel. They make people go on marches. Marches? Said Bruno, appalled. I can't go on a march. I have to be home in time for dinner. It's roast beef tonight. Shh, said Shmuel, putting a finger to his lips. Don't say anything, or they get angry. Okay, so again, this whistle is a signal that Shmuel knows the meaning of, and Bruno doesn't. Okay, he doesn't know what that whistle means, and that whistle is a gesture or a signal for them to gather to go on a quote unquote march. They have to stand in line and go on a march, like like marching soldiers, kind of. Bruno was like, I don't want to march. I want to go home. I have to go home. It's roast beef tonight. I want to eat. And he tells him, you can't do that. You have to adhere to the rules. Uh, Bruno frowned but was relieved that all the people in striped pajamas from this part of the camp were gathering together now, most of them being pushed together by the soldiers, so that he and Shmuel were hidden in the center of them and could not be seen. Okay, so you can almost visualize this, right? Him and Bruno are in the middle, and all the other Jews in the striped pajamas are around them, and they're going to be shoved into a march. Okay, he didn't know what everyone looked so frightened about. After all, marching wasn't such a terrible thing. Okay, this tells us here that this is more than a march. Okay, the Jews or the adults, not maybe Shmuel, but maybe the other adults or the other men, they understand that this is not a good ending, and that they're being driven to a bad place, or something scary or frightening is going to happen. And he wanted to whisper to them that everything was all right, that father was the commandant, and if this was the kind of thing that he wanted the people to do, then it must be all right. So here Bruno is still living to the expectation of believing in the goodness and the innocence of his father and his good heart, because this is the father that he knows. This is the commandant that raised him. He knows that his father would not be responsible to hurt anyone. uh, that if the march that we're going on right now is something that my father approves of, then it must be something good. It can't be something hurtful or negative. Little does he know. Okay. The whistles blew again, and this time the group of people, which must have numbered about 100, started to march slowly together when Bruno and Shmuel still held together in the center. There was some sort of a disturbance towards the back, where some people seemed unwilling to march. But Bruno was too small to see what happened, and all he heard were loud noises, like the sound of gunshots. But he couldn't make out what they were. So those who refused to go on a march, what did they face? They faced death, right? They were shot to death. All right. Does the marching go on for long? He whispered, because he was beginning to feel quite hungry. I don't think so, said Shmuel. I never see the people after they've gone on a march. But I wouldn't imagine it does. All right, so again, Shmuel's words suggest death. Okay, those who go on a march are never seen afterwards. That means, what does it suggest? That they go to meet their death. Okay, so he's saying that the people that go on a march, we never get to see them again. We just never do. Okay, so number 5, how is Bruno prevented from going home? He wants to go home because it's roast beef night, and how is he prevented from going home? Reem,
The soldiers let them go on marches.
good. Okay, good job. Okay, the soldiers sounded the whistle, and it meant that they had to go on a quote unquote march. We're gonna quote unquote it because this is not the truth. Okay, and hundreds of Jews joined them. Okay, and Bruno couldn't fight it because Shmuel told him that it would upset the soldiers and they would get angry. So, Bruno said, you know what, let's do it. And now he's just wondering if it's going to be time consuming, okay, because he's getting a little hungry. All right. I don't think so. I never see the people after they go on a march. This is scary. Bruno frowned. He looked up at the sky, and as he did so, there was another loud sound. This time, the sound of thunder overhead, and just as quickly, the sky seemed to grow even darker, almost black, and the rain poured down even more heavily than it had in the morning. Okay, so here we see the color black and the rain, or the sky darkening and the rain, showering. Again, we know that something negative is about. This is not a good. This is not a good time, and whatever is happening is not something happy. Okay. So Bruno closed his eyes for a moment and felt it wash over him. When he opened them again, he wasn't so much marching as being swept along by the group of people, and all he could feel was the mud that was caked all over his body and his pajamas, clinging to his skin with all the rain, and he longed to be back in his house, watching all this from a distance and not wrapped up in the center of it. So now that he's in the action, he wishes that he was back in his house just looking at it from the window. Okay, and this is how his parents wanted it to be all along. Um, but he wanted to come and experience life on the other side, and this is what he had to go through. When he opened them again, okay, so that's it. He said to Shmuel, I'm going to catch a cold out here. I have to go home. But just as he said this, his feet brought him up a set of steps. And as he marched on, he found that there was no more rain coming down anymore because they were all piling into a long room that was surprisingly warm and must have been very securely built because no rain was getting in anywhere. In fact, it felt completely airtight. And this is the gas chamber, by the way. Okay, so here when he discusses that, when he says this, I want to share something with you. Mhm. Okay, they mentioned that the place was securely tight. Okay, because there were no rain was coming in it. Okay, and if we I'm gonna share the screen with you guys for a second here. 1 second. If you look here together, and if you look at the screen, this is the image actually of how a gas chamber room looked like. Okay, it's just a very tightly closed room. You can say there's no ventilation, there's no air, no space, because again, this is a method of dying through suffocation. Hmm. Okay, like here. Okay, so this is the kind of room that they were in. Okay, so we got kind of a feel how this gas chambered room would look like. Okay, this is the room that he was forced to get into with Shmuel, and this is the situation that he's in right now. All right, then they go in, and Shmuel gathers himself very close to Bruno. I'm sorry we didn't find your papa, said Bruno. It's all right, said Shmuel. And I'm sorry we didn't really get to play, but when you come to Berlin, that's what we'll do. And I'll introduce you to, what were their names again? He asked himself, frustrated because they were supposed to be his three best friends for life, but they had all vanished from his memory now. Okay? He couldn't remember any of their names and he couldn't picture any of their faces. Actually, he said, looking down at Shmuel, it doesn't matter whether I do or not. They are not my best friends anymore. Anyway, he looked down and did something quite out of character for him. He took hold of Shmuel's tiny hand in his and squeezed it tightly. You're my best friend, Shmuel, he said, my best friend for life. Shmuel may well have opened his mouth. Loud gasp from all the marchers who had filled the room. This is a gasp, okay? As the door at the front was suddenly closed and a loud metallic sound rang through from the outside. All right, a loud, very disturbing sound just ringing. Bruno raised an eyebrow.
Sister, are you talking?
Yes, I was saying that until the last minute, Bruno has good intentions about everything. After he declared his friendship with.
Yes, ma'am.
Bruno tells Shmuel, hello. Again, Bruno tells Shmuel that he's his best friend and that he doesn't anymore because they're no longer his best friends. He holds tightly Shmuel's hand, and at this point, he tells him, uh, Bruno thinks he doesn't understand what this loud ringing means. Until now, he thinks that this is a good room because this is the way that the soldiers are securing them from the rain and from catching a cold. Again, we see Bruno's innocence and his good intentions. All right, Bruno raised an eyebrow, unable to understand the sense. Okay, and then the room went very dark. Okay, so it was very dark, and somehow, despite the chaos that followed, Bruno found that he was still holding Shmuel's hand in his own, and nothing in the world would have persuaded him to let it go. Okay, so this is a very touchy part in the novel. We see how that they are together. How does Bruno come to hold Shmuel's hand in the airtight room? What makes them hold hands? What makes them hold hands? Judy, please.
When they were squeezed into the people in the marches, he held the Shmuel's hand tightly, so he won't let him go because he's his best friend. Yeah.
Right. This is the part where he wanted to declare to him that he's his best friend. Good job. All right. So here, while they were huddled inside the airtight room, his best friend for life, and he holds his hand and squeezes it tightly. All right. This is a way of assuring Shmuel that he is his best friend and that he's one of a kind. So here they never let it go. The room is now pitch dark, and nothing more was ever heard of Bruno after that. Okay, so again, of course, we know that he died in the gas chambered room. Several days later, after soldiers had searched every part of the house and gone into all the local towns and villages with pictures of the little boy, one of them discovered the pile of clothes and the pair of boots that Bruno had left near the fence. He left them there undisturbed and went to fetch the commandant, who examined the area and looked to his left and looked to his right, just as Bruno had done, but for the life of him he could not understand what had happened to his son. It was as if he had just vanished off the face of the earth and left his clothes behind him. Mother did not return to Berlin quite as quickly as she had hoped. She stayed at Outwith for several months, waiting for news of Bruno, until one day, quite suddenly, she thought he might have made his way home alone. So she immediately returned to their old house, half expecting to see him sitting on the doorstep waiting for her. He wasn't there, of course. Gretel returned to Berlin with mother and spent a lot of time alone in her room crying, not because she had thrown her dolls away and not because she had left all her maps behind at Outwith, but because she missed Bruno so much. Father stayed at Outwith for another year after that and became very disliked by the other soldiers, whom he ordered around mercilessly. He went to sleep every night thinking about Bruno, and he woke up every morning thinking about him too. One day he formed a theory about what might have occurred, and he went back to the place in the fence where the pile of clothes had been, found a year before. There was nothing particularly special about that place or different. But then he did a little exploration of his own and discovered that the base of the fence here was not properly attached to the ground as it was everywhere else, and that when lifted, it left a gap large enough for a very small person, such as Bruno, to crawl underneath. He looked into the distance, then followed it through logically, step by step. And when he did, he found that his legs seemed to stop working right, as if they couldn't hold his body up any longer. And he ended up sitting on the ground in almost exactly the same position as Bruno had every afternoon for a year, although he didn't cross his legs beneath him. A few months after that, some other soldiers came to Atwith, and father was ordered to go with them. And he went without complaint, and he was happy to do so because he didn't really mind what they did to him anymore. And that's the end of the story about Bruno and his family. Of course, all this happened a long time ago, and nothing like that could ever happen again. Not in this day and age. Okay? So this is John Boyne's message. All right, that this day and age, the years that we are in now, nothing like this could happen because thankfully we are not we're not going through these social divisions anymore, and we're trying to build a better society where everyone is treated safely and humanely and with justice above all, right? And this is the message that John Boyne is trying to deliver. That two innocent boys, it cost them their life because again, Shmuel, um, he's an innocent little kid that found a friend, and Bruno was left in the dark by his parents. They never told him what happened or what this was. Uh, he was not informed of anything, and his ignorance and his innocence led him to believe a lot of things that were not true, and it drove him to this position. Especially that he never saw anything wrong with Shmuel as a person. So he was torn between whether to believe his family and the negativity or the negative things that they said about the Jews, or to believe the good-natured kid that he is friends with that made his life better. Okay, that he shares every moment with. How do the members of Bruno's family react to his disappearance? Okay, so Maya, please tell us.
Mom delayed her trip to Berlin, and she stayed for a while in Outwood. And then after a while, she realized that maybe her son Bruno is found his way back to Berlin. But that was wrong.
Okay, what about Griddle? How is Griddle behaving? Adam.
She cried in her bed not because of her dolls, but
Oh.
because she missed Bruno.
All right, and father, how did he react to his disappearance? How did he become? Hannah Hamdi, please.
Miss, can you repeat the question?
How did Bruno come?
He didn't come. They were they were trying to like trying to keep يعني يوصلوا له
They're trying to reach him.
Reach him.
Yes, but they couldn't. And then, but when father, one of the commandants saw Bruno's clothes on the ground one time, and then he told father to see it, and father, يعني
This is
saw
you're
that
answering
they.
you're answering the question number 8. This is how he realized what happened to Bruno. But here, the death of Bruno also made the commandant feel bad. All right, it made him act negatively. Okay, Judy, can you please emphasize that point? How did he start? He started to behave how? What did he? Did he? Was he the same person, or did he change his the way that
He
he
changed his
behaved?
he changes person يعني مش يعني كده يعني
Exactly, right. The way that he carries himself. How?
uh, like I don't know how.
He treated the soldiers mercilessly and ordered them around, and he became very disliked by the people that he worked with. And then there's another part here that they say that a few months after, the soldiers came to Outwith, and father was ordered to go with them. So father was asked to leave Outwith, not to be in the camp anymore, and the soldiers took him away. And he didn't care what would happen anymore to him. He didn't care what they would do to him. What do you think that father's end is? Is it a good
Yes.
one?
He was happy to do so, because he didn't really mind that they did that to him that anymore. Yeah.
Yes. So you think that the soldiers came to do something, what, to take him away to what? Maybe they're gonna imprison him. Maybe they even want to kill him. All right. Maybe they want to maybe punish him in some sort. And he didn't care about the outcome. He didn't care about.
Like he punished Lieutenant Cutler.
Exactly. Bravo, Judy. And this is actually giving us a flashback about Lieutenant Cutler. Me too. That's what came to my mind. He treated the soldiers mercilessly. Hmm. Hmm. Uh, All right, this is how Bruno's death affected each one of them. All right, now the question here comes to the part where how does the commandant come to realize? And this is what Hannah was telling us. Hannah, do you mind saying it again, honey?
Yes, they were. The commandant saw the sorry.
He
The
went back to
commandant saw
the place where they found the
the Bruno's clothes.
exactly. He went back to the place where Bruno's pile of clothes was found a year back, and he traced his steps, his son's possible steps. All right. He also realized that the fence in this particular area was not secured. All right. He realized that he by this area wasn't secured, and that someone as tiny as Bruno can actually slip underneath. Okay. And as he comes to this realization, guys, what does he do? What does he do? We see that he stumbles onto the floor. All right, and his stumbling onto the floor is proof that what that he realized something very very negative about his son, or maybe he even realized that he could have been possibly mixed in with the rest of the Jews and taken as a victim and met his death. And this is when he stumbles down and he's unable to carry his legs are unable to carry him. All right, signifying that he's basically lost it. Okay. Sorry, guys, I was interrupted. Any questions about the novel? Did you guys like it?
I liked it, but in the end, I didn't like it.
You didn't like the sad ending. That's true.
I no, I cried so much in the movie, but I didn't even like shed
Oh,
a
you
tear in the
did.
novel.
But in the movie, it was touching. I know. In the movie, really, it
Yes,
made
my mom kept laughing at me when I was crying.
because you were bawling, huh? You were crying outrageously.
Yes,
I cried for the next 2 hours after the movie.
Hold on, Hannah. But yeah, the movie is touching, honestly, guys. It really is. The novel, yeah, we kind of built a relationship between these characters, and we kind of we grew attached to them, and we feel bad for Bruno. I really feel bad because he was left in the dark. This is what really upsets me. Do you think, guys, think that this is a or no? What do you think? Is this a proper
Ye-
children's book, or do you think it's not a children's book? What would you say?
I don't think
I think it's a children's book.
no, I
So
think it's
Hannah,
like
inshallah, when you grow up and you are an adult and you have kids on your own, would you be happy to have your baby daughter read it? Not a baby, but I mean,
Well, no, no, but like for our age, I think it would be good, يعني, in considering the fact that the ending was not that touching as the movie.
right.
لا مسك the way that يعني the way that it was shown in the movie. Yes, we didn't see how they died, but يعني the feeling يعني was يعني it was hard يعني.
So would you recommend that for your child to read?
No,
Inshallah?
no,
No, bad because
I
can I
wouldn't
say what?
Judy,
There was this part where Lieutenant Costler was hitting people. That was like a violent thing for a child to see. So I think
okay.
he will be scared. Yeah, he won't understand. So it will make him feel scared. Yeah, of
Okay,
this part.
all right. So you guys see that there's some parts of it that might be a little bit sensitive, or might be. And Fadia also agrees the same, but Hannah thinks that it would be a good book. Okay.
No,
Here,
I think for our age, but not for younger people.
well, they asked this question to John Boyne, and John Boyne said, "I think of it as a book. I don't think of it as a children's book or an adult book. I'm not entirely sure. I know what the difference is between a
as a
children's book and an
it's
adult
good
book."
for ages يعني. I don't think it's يعني it's not good for our age يعني. But the movie يعني it's kind
Oh,
هو بصراحة it's boring شوية
you think it's boring?
because it has a lot of details that does يعني ملهاش لازمة.
Oh God, Nano, please. No, I thought
تفصيل
that
ممل.
I no, I thought that book was good and it was such an
yeah,
easy read,
its
and
details are so يعني interesting.
Miss, I
yeah,
let my daughter watch inshallah Mickey Mouse وخلاص كده.
good.
I was that innocent. We
Okay,
were
I
that
want to be your
innocent.
daughter, Judy. When you grow up and you adopt me, I want to watch them.
I will let her watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Oh God, no.
That's my
I get
jam.
Okay, so here they asked
it.
John one of these questions that I want to ask you. Do you think what are the lessons to be learned from Bruno's story? From Bruno's story, what are some lessons that we can learn,
I
or
think
anyone that
there
read
are
the story?
lessons there.
There are many of them. Give me one.
But
I don't think that Bruno should have been left
Oh miss,
clueless.
I have yes, I have
Clueless. Perfect. Who
I
said that?
think
Hannah?
Yes.
Yes, I think that his parents, while trying to secure him or thinking that they are securing him, they left him too much in the dark, too clueless, to the point where it really backfired. It backfired on him until the point of him being in the gas chamber. He thinks that he's in a room to secure him from the rain and the mud, so that he doesn't catch cold. So his innocence and his naivety was really, really, I think, his downfall. Good job, Hannah. So what we could learn is, yes, it's okay to keep to preserve the innocence of our children. Yes, it's okay to try to cover or not make them see the negative things in the world. But we also have to keep them aware and knowledgeable.
They and they, even if they really wanted not for him to know, and for him to be like they didn't want him to know because he was
Young.
just a little kid,
Uh,
yeah, young. They wouldn't. Why would they go there? And when he will see it already, يعني,
exactly.
why will
Perfect.
they go there?
Yeah, right. You're putting in a child in an area, and you want to shelter them and you want to put them in a bubble. But they're bound to see it, and they're bound to get in touch with it, just like he did by going on a simple walk and bumping into a simple little kid just like him.
Also,
Okay.
never disobey your parents because it may lead to something like a terrible consequence.
Right, they did give the rules. They did put the rules for him not to ever go by the fence, and they did give him some guidelines that he did break. I agree with you, Judy. But
Miss, they
again,
should
can you
have
blame Bruno for breaking these rules?
no, no.
No,
No.
because he was helping a friend.
And not only because he's
He
helping a
didn't
friend,
know
because he's bored,
the
Yajuti. Imagine they
Yeah.
expected him to stay in this house all alone with a sister that that he doesn't get along with, and with no friends, and they expected him to stay indoors all the time. Is that possible?
no, Miss.
No.
No.
Should have
بس
been
وكمان يا misses that
replaced.
يعني sometimes you fall into the doing of your own hands without even expecting it.
You sometimes say that again, Yaneno?
You can fall into the doing of your own hands without expecting.
Exactly. You're kind of setting up yourself, right? You're setting this up
أيوة
for
like
yourself.
father كده ابن مامته.
Exactly. And father was digging the hole for himself, honestly. From the beginning, we saw that he's setting up the family to fail.
He
Um,
knew. I think he knew that they were going to fail, but I don't think he wanted to admit it. Given the fact that if he's admitted it, they would be kicked out of kicked out of their own country, or they would be in jail, or they would be in a bad place.
exactly. He was very well aware of the consequences if he turned this job away, that he will serve terrible consequences. You're absolutely correct.
and he was
All
also
the
not
rest of
too
the
ready
hands
to
would have
act
been
without
meant to fail.
يعني taking things into consideration.
Exactly. Exactly. Good job. Perfect. I hope that you guys, well, it was a good read, and I really, I want to thank you guys, really, for doing a great job in reading, keeping up with the reading, keeping up with the homeworks. I know it's a lot of work, but you guys managed to do it. It was fun reading it with you. It was also fun, really fun to discuss it with you. Um, and inshallah, you guys will like the next novel that I'm going to introduce to you. I'm
What
scared
is
a
it
little
about?
bit. I'm scared.
What is the name? What is the name of it?
I'm scared. I'm scared to say.
يا مامي.
ولا مثلا
I'm scared to say because you guys might not like it.
Well,
لا
يعني
بس هي
in both conditions we might not like it, but يعني there is a 50% chance we would like it.
Okay, it's called Animal Farm.
Allah.
بداية
You
مبشرة.
guys think it's an Animal Farm. You think it's a kid's story, but it's not. It's also political, by the way. And I'm going to explain all the history, inshallah, behind it next Wednesday when we meet for
كده
our
في جميل.
online session.
Wow, wow.
You should
Uh,
have.
I chose it, guys, because it's a short story. It's a short novel. It's only 10 chapters. So we could divide it between 5 and 5. Okay, 5 chapters for term 1, and 5 chapters for term 3, and 5 chapters for term 4, and then that will be marking the end of your 8th grade adventure with novels. Okay, so
Why?
so we have 1 minute left. Thank you again today. Don't forget your essays are due tomorrow. Hand them in, and have a great Thursday and Friday and Saturday off. Until we meet again, inshallah, on Sunday. If you have any questions, meanwhile, please feel free to contact me on Messenger. Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. Take care and love you all. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, babies. Bye.
Yeah.